Dust swirled lazily in the pale light of the street lamp, doing its best to hide the deep, dark secrets lurking within the shadows. An old brick building, looking like it hadn't seen a fresh coat of paint since the last time a world war broke out, creaked under the weight of its own misery. It seemed to be waiting for someone, or perhaps for the inevitable collapse. When the door slowly creaked open, the sound was so dramatic that it could have easily been the opening scene of a horror movie. "This place has never betrayed me," Mikhail Orlov muttered to himself, dragging his fingers across the grime-covered glass. If anyone could make it through this, it was him, the self-proclaimed expert in navigating misery, or at least in pretending like he knew what he was doing. His life had been a never-ending series of such moments, full of tension, quiet desperation, and the crushing weight of paperwork that was somehow always just about to be filed. But tonight was different. The case that had brought him here had all the right elements: gruesome, mysterious, and just the right amount of high-profile drama. There had been a murder, sure, but it wasn't just any murder. No, this was one of those where the victim had been made to suffer in ways that even the best horror movie scripts would blush at. And still, the killer was nowhere to be found. Orlov had a hunch, just the kind of gut feeling you only get after too many cups of coffee and hours of staring at cold, impersonal case files, that this time he'd catch the bastard. "Don't overthink it," he whispered, though the silence around him was thick enough to suffocate even the bravest detective. With a deep breath, he stepped inside, ready to face whatever nonsense awaited him. A flash of lightning split the sky open like a bad breakup, casting everything into a new level of darkness. Mikhail could feel the chill creeping through his bones, settling into his skin like an unwanted guest that had overstayed its welcome. Sure, he'd been through gunfights, near-death experiences, and the occasional death threat, but this was something else. This was the kind of creepy feeling you get when you walk into a room and realize you've been invited to the haunted house. He moved carefully through the building, each step feeling like a betrayal of every ounce of caution he'd ever been taught. The house was an antique of neglect, dusty carpets, broken floorboards, and the kind of smell that only ancient buildings could muster, equal parts mildew and forgotten history. And then there was the whisper. A soft, eerie rustle like someone or something was moving just out of his line of sight. Orlov froze, his hand instinctively going to the holster by his side, fingers curling around his gun like it was his last lifeline. "Well, well, well," said a voice from the dark, smooth and mocking, as if someone had rehearsed this exact moment in front of a mirror. "You finally made it, Orlov." Orlov's heart skipped a beat, but he wasn't going to let this mystery villain have the satisfaction of seeing him flinch. "Is this your idea of dramatic entrance?" he shot back, stepping forward. The sarcasm was the only armor he had left. "Do you usually practice your monologues before actually showing up, or is this spontaneous villainy?" But of course, the shadows were merciless. The only reply was an eerie silence, punctuated by the faintest sound of a door creaking somewhere upstairs. Orlov rolled his eyes. Great, just what he needed. Ghosts with flair for the dramatic.
If you ever wanted to feel like you were trapped in a bad escape room designed by someone with a grudge against logic, try navigating an old house in the middle of a case you really don't want to be on. Orlov wasn't sure if the walls were closing in on him because the house was legitimately falling apart, or if he'd simply lost all sense of time and space trying to follow the trail of breadcrumbs, more like a trail of bad decisions. Every creaky step sent waves of doubt through his mind. Was this really just a crime scene, or had he stumbled into some twisted game that no one had told him about? Was he part of a plot that was a little too elaborate for a Monday morning case? His flashlight flickered, casting long, haunting shadows across the room. And then it happened. A single black envelope lying innocently in the center of the room like it was a note from the universe saying, "Go ahead, open it, and embrace the chaos." Orlov's eyebrows furrowed. You've got to be kidding me, he muttered, picking it up with a kind of dramatic flair only a detective could muster. The envelope was ice cold to the touch, as if someone had been waiting for him for years, or simply had left it there because they knew he'd show up eventually. Inside was a single piece of paper with one simple line printed on it: "Your next move." Orlov stared at the note for a moment longer than necessary, wondering if he was in the middle of some bizarre prank. Really? This is how we're doing this now? He couldn't help but chuckle bitterly, but there was no time to dwell on the absurdity of it all. The game had already begun, and there was no going back. If anything, he might as well have been handed the villain's playbook.
The map was simple, sketchy even. Some random X's marked across the city, including Orlov's own home, his office, and one ominously placed near a cemetery on the edge of town. "Well, isn't that charming?" Orlov mumbled, his eyes narrowing as he traced the map with his finger. It was like someone had planned this, orchestrated it all just to mess with him. But why? And more importantly, who? It was at that exact moment that Orlov heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind him. Slow, methodical. Someone or something was following him. He spun around, reaching for his gun. No one. But that didn't mean he was alone. The entire house creaked like it had a mind of its own, groaning and sighing under the weight of some secret it didn't want to share. "No, no, no," Orlov muttered to himself, eyes darting around. "Not this again." And that's when he saw it. A figure standing in the hallway, as calm as a snake before it strikes. "You've been busy," the figure said, voice smooth as velvet with just the right amount of mocking superiority. Orlov couldn't help himself. What, no cape, no dramatic lighting? Come on, at least put some effort into this. The man's lips curled into a twisted smile. "You don't understand, Orlov. You are the game."
The man took one step closer, then another. Orlov's instincts kicked in. His hand flew to his gun, but before he could make a move, the man lunged, grabbing the weapon from his hand with terrifying ease. Orlov didn't even have time to react before the gun was on the floor, and the man was standing over him like he was the one calling the shots. "Really?" Orlov raised an eyebrow, barely able to keep the sarcasm out of his voice. "This is the part where I'm supposed to surrender?" He let out a dramatic sigh. "How original." The man just smiled. "Now you're part of the game, Orlov," he said, his tone as cold as the shadows surrounding them. And so, the chase continued. But as the lines between hunter and prey blurred, Orlov knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just a murder case anymore. This was something bigger, something far more dangerous. And the only thing more twisted than the game was the one playing it.